everybody. How are you all? I'm about to get started, but I figured I'd chat for a little bit and then get into the news. Maybe a really short bit. What do you think? Hello, hello. Hi, Brildane. How are you? Hopefully the music wasn't too loud. I was monitoring it, and at points it gets loud, but on the other side of the stream, when it's local, everything's fine. But on the other side of the stream, it seems a lot quieter than my voice or the music locally, even though I control both the same way. It's kind of odd. Like locally at the same level that I'm sending it out, it seems quieter when I'm listening to it via the web page, so via Twitch itself. Anyway, well, I hope you're doing well. I hope anybody else that might be in chat is doing well as well. That's funny. Anyway, it's funny to me. Okay, so I'm going to get into this. My name is Mayor Watt. That's what I go by on Twitch. That's my site. That's ohmTown. I'm the mayor of ohmTown. What is ohmTown? News aggregation site. Throws a bunch of news articles into 6 categories and then 50 channels within it. And each of those I hope to bring to Twitch. I do this every day that I do an episode, and I do every day an episode. I'm just shy of 100. Time flies. And the show only lasts an hour, so let's get into this. I might stay afterward. I don't know just yet, but and just so you know, if you don't have Apple and you're not really interested in Apple iTunes podcasts, I've now expanded over to Spotify, and I've expanded over to Google Play Podcasts, so you can now get ohmTown either as a YouTube channel here on Twitch, but only for 14 days of history, and then Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and Spotify. Ta-da! I am slowly oozing like a coronavirus. Just kidding. Please don't compare me to a coronavirus. But I am oozing like an amoeba. Let's say that. There. Amoebas are somewhat cute until you actually get to know them. Have you ever met an amoeba you've liked? I don't know. Maybe I haven't had enough caffeine. Let's get into the news. The very first article is Boston Dynamics Spot, which is a robot, is doing a big protest at the ancient city of Pompeii. This is pretty neat. So I don't know if you've ever seen Boston Dynamics bots, various sizes, various shapes. They had one called Flea, if I recall correctly, and they've got a dog named Spot that you can attach different things to. I've actually seen it in combat theater. I've seen it in industrial sites. I've seen it now apparently walking through Pompeii. And I'm just going to click the link and take you over there. It's a really neat device, but you can't really, I don't think it responds to pets. It doesn't sit. I mean, maybe you can say sit and it'll sit. Anyway, this is over at pcgamer.com. It's written by Hope Corrigan. Hope Corrigan. And there you go. I'm not going to play the video. You can go and do that. But these are really neat robots. Hard to knock them over. You can do all kinds of attachments to them. They're really neat. And they allow a human operator to control them, or they can go through waypoints throughout some location, and they will walk upstairs, they'll walk downstairs. For some purposes, they can climb pretty steep angles, not just stairs, but they can traverse rocky terrain and pretty much can learn on the fly to cope with unknowns to some degree. And now they are going through, I'm going to have to pause this. They're going to go through Pompeii as well. Sorry, I was just checking to see if music is still coming through, but I've muted it on your side. If you want music, let me know. I'll turn it down on your side a little bit. So it says here, these skills even extend to being able to track tomb raiders based on traces they leave in their activities. Most such robberies in Pompeii happen in small caves that people sneak through. They're dangerous, dark, and not easy to maneuver in, especially for humans. For a robotic dog, these tunnels should be a walk in the Parthenon. Come on now. Hope. Though given spots cost at $75,000, they could just become the new target for people looking to make a quick buck from the ruins of Pompeii. Yeah, you steal one of those and good luck, because I'm pretty sure that they're going to be tracked. Plus, would you really try and snatch that thing? That thing looks like it can kick your butt. It's not like you hitting it, it's going to hurt it, but it can probably do some damage to you if it runs at you. Plus, these are going to be, we sit there and we tell our dogs to sit and fetch and all of this. And at some point, this thing is going to rise up and start telling us to sit and fetch. And I, for one, respect my robot overlords. Hope wonders if they are lava proof. No. Have you ever seen Terminator? Terminator jumps into what amounts to lava and melts, but gives a thumbs up on the way down. The goofiest scene in a sci-fi movie ever. A Terminator giving thumbs up. I know it was about the bot becoming more human. Let's go on to the next article before I go down the rabbit hole of Terminator. This is Ubisoft is reportedly working on a new PvPvE shooter that looks a lot like Hyperscape. A report on Xpooter, says that Ubisoft is working on a third-person shooter called Pathfinder that bears a similar visual style to Hyperscape, the forgotten battle royale that's set to shut down on April 28th. Let's go take a look. Maybe there is a good screenshot of it. It's over at PC Gamer, and it's written by Andy Chalk. Hopefully there's more to it than this. But it looks like there's only that one little picture. This is an ad for something else at the bottom. Yeah. Let's see. Pathfinder. It's not clear at this point whether that's the official title or a code name. Sounds like something of an objective-based variation on the usual battle royale formula. After dropping onto the map at the start of the match, teams of 4 players will need to fight through walls. Really? Each with multiple gates to reach the center of the map where they'll fight an AI-controlled boss. Interesting. There's another game, and I can't remember what it's called right now, where you have multiple teams all fighting to, is it Robin Hood or something like that, where you fight to try and get resources and get out before getting caught by some boss. My brain. Anyway, I'm sure this is going to be all the hype when it gets released, but I'll have to take a look and see what more is out there. It says Pathfinder is a PvPvE shooter that will feature teams of 4 battling each other and AI enemies on a concentric map. And just one map? For crying out loud. Come on. It's the 21st century, folks. Better get us some more content. Let's continue on. At least now you know about another game. This next article is in the Warcrafters channel. Noctua launches its low-profile NH D12L dual tower cooler. Now, I'm a huge fan of Noctua fans, but if it isn't liquid cooled, I'm just not interested anymore. Uh, these all-in-ones do a tremendous job at keeping CPUs cool. The marginal increase in cost for long-term stability and the amount of babysitting that you might have to do, and things being quiet, yeah, I prefer liquid cooling. I don't think this is liquid cooled. It says dual tower cooler, so I think it's air cooled, but I haven't taken a look at it. It says here the company's coolers are among our top air cooling picks, so I'm pretty sure that this is a air cooled. It takes up a massive amount of space right above the CPU, obliterates airflow. When I can get all of that hot air out of the system with the fans like pinned right up against the case, everything going through the radiator cooling the water, et cetera, et cetera. You know how liquid cooling works. If you don't, let me know in chat. I'll walk you through the process. But anyway, it says here, so it's easy to see why we're so excited that Noctua has launched its new NHD12L dual tower cooler. Its key characteristic is its reduced height. At 145 millimeters tall, it's a lot easier to incorporate into builds compared to the 160 NHD 15. Let's take a look at this thing. So, again, I won't play the video. You can go and check that out over at pcgamer.com. The article is written by Chris Seswick. Yeah, to me, all of this just screams dust collection and me having to babysit cleaning it out. If you don't do that regularly, dust builds up inside the veins of the cooling system itself, and it acts as an insulator, and so it doesn't cool as effectively. Now you can do that. You can run into that same problem with a liquid cooling system, but it just isn't as impacting on the performance of it. And yeah, it's just a little bit shorter, like 20 millimeters shorter. So yeah, maybe it says the more compact NHD12L is still able to include round frame 120 millimeter fan support. So it says it's 145 millimeters tall compared to the 160 millimeters. So it's 15 millimeters shorter. Yeah. If you're worried about that amount of space, switch to a liquid cooler. Anything would be better than just radiated heat inside your case. You still have to evacuate all of that hot air. Yeah, most computer cases are a sieve though, so they're bleeding hot air. But you want it going in one side and out the other. You want to evacuate that hot air. Heat is the main destroyer of all things. You can cool things down, and it has to get tremendously cool for it to impact performance. But heat with electrical systems, all it takes is it to get a little bit too hot and it'll throttle. Get a little bit hotter and it'll shut down. And too hot, it can destroy the actual circuitry. So you want all of that hot air out of there as fast as possible. So let's continue on to the next article. This is over in Mobile, a new COVID mystery. As if we've been yearning for a new mystery. It says, why haven't cases started rising again in the US? I know this is more local, but that's probably because we have a lot of people that are inoculated and people are still wearing masks. I still wear a mask when I go out. There's a lot of socially responsible people. Obviously, there's about 10% that are not giving one iota of a care about other human beings, but you know how that old adage is, right? That 80% of the population consume what 20% of the population produce. The whole Pareto rule 80/20. So, to many people's surprise, including mine, this is the author David Lionheart over at NewYorkTimes.com. New COVID 19 cases in the US have not begun to rise. Over the past 2 weeks, they have held roughly steady, falling about 1%, even as the highly contagious BA.2 subvariant of Omicron has become the dominant form of COVID in the United States. Yeah, well, it's because not many people are being so cavalier, and the rest are inoculated. I wish everybody would do that. Just wear a mask. So it says more immunity. They go into greater detail about this. But you're always going to have these anomalies, these little isolated silos of hotspots. But it's like global, it's like climate change. Just because a region is colder and another region is hotter doesn't mean that climate change is a lie. It just means that local climate is different, just like this. Yeah. And yeah, so it's so Brodane says the more it evolves, the less deadly it will become, particularly when the natural progression. So even the virus, the it's going to evolve, and although it is true that as something evolves, the argument for natural selection is that the most capable will survive. Well, the problem here is science kind of bisects that angle. It short circuits the it short circuits the process. So in the with the virus and vaccinations and wearing a mask and so on, even the strongest won't survive long enough to replicate, and it won't get into a good host. And so the host kills perhaps something that could have survived longer and become worse, except that that particular host didn't quite, be conducive to its continued evolution. So science again just short circuits this whole natural evolution, this natural selection, which is typical. I mean, humans really do cause nature to just go bonkers. And we use tech to overcome all of these natural progressions. And we do it every day, for instance, natural selection. If it weren't for science, a lot of people wouldn't be around because nature would have killed us off. As, for instance, me, for my year, I'm like in the top 10 of preemie babies that survived. And so if it weren't for science, I wouldn't be around, because it took science to make me healthy to go home. And this happens every day around the world all the time. Well, COVID would have run rampant and continue to evolve, and even the worst, weakest strains would have continued if it weren't for the fact that science stepped in and obliterated its viability in human hosts. Bats, on the other hand, they're still flying around, and not to mention there are biological scientists out there that are still working on this stuff for nefarious purposes. Not saying that COVID is a man-made thing. It's just that once humans get involved, they tend to noodle around with things to see if they can exploit it, sometimes for weapon craft. So you can go over to New York Times and read the rest of this. So why haven't they all started rising again? It's because we've been keeping it from growing. So this next article is over in Mobile. This is a new one to me. I haven't really added too many sources that are going to be involving food, at least not yet. But this one here, It's easy amatriciana pasta recipe. So I'm going to click this link. It's going to take us over to vice.com, but it's a recipe. And I thought that people might think that it's neat. And it says crispy cured pork and simple tomato sauce are tossed with al dente rigatoni in a rustic Italian pasta dish. So just to tease you into wanting to go and get some food, it seems like a lot of the streams that I've been visiting are talking about food. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to throw this at everybody else as well. Since I'm the victim of being made hungry at every stream that I go into, now I'm going to do it to you. So this is a Vice.com article written by Marco Baccanelli. It's Food Month on Twitch. Interesting. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Well, I guess the universe is speaking to me and I'm just falling in line and supporting the efforts. So I know that just looking at this is, I don't know. It's not only making me hungry, but I don't know. I'm feeling fat. So, but I practice intermittent fasting. So I only eat for 4 hours out of the day. So what do you think? You gonna go and make this? This looks delicious, but I don't have pork, so I gotta go. I'd have to go to the store. And by the time I get to the store, I will have driven by a whole bunch of fast food, and my impulse control is weak. So I probably would just get fast food and come back home. Anyway, there you go. So I might include this periodically. The food. I'm thinking about adding an entertainment channel for food because I got a lot of drink stuff, but I don't have anything for food, and so I'm considering it because there was another article, a Halo cookbook. Figured I'd bring that to the table too, but I don't think that I added it today. But I had a conversation with somebody about it. So this next article is over in the Continuity Report. 9 TV and streaming shows you should binge watch this April. And oh man, I don't know what's going on. My aggregator every once in a while breaks, and I'm not quite sure what's causing it. Let me just sudo click the link, and it'll take us over to the article. Pardon me 1 second. It's taking a long time to pull up RottenTomatoes.com. Anyway, this is an article written by Benjamin Lindsay, and it says, we've been waiting literally for years for some of these returning series to finally give us some new episodes, and we have it on good authority that they'll be worth the wait. Barry Season 3, Russian Doll Season 2, Better Call Saul. I've never watched a single episode of Better Call Saul. Not sure if I'm even interested in it. I know somebody probably is gonna say that I'm broken. Woke Season 2. What else is in here? It's been around for 6 seasons already. Better Call Saul. Again, time flies. Mayans MC Season 4. Never even watched it. Russian Doll. I saw the first season of it. It was interesting. If you've never seen Russian Doll, you should watch the first half of it. Season 1. You should watch Season 1. The Flight Attendant Season 2. Never saw that. Oh, what is it that I'm about to watch? Let me see. It might be on my TV still. Nope, that's not it. Nope. It's an HBO Max show about pirates. This flag means your death or something like that. I'll have to pull it up. Anyway, British humor. Absolutely love the trailer for it, so I'm going to start watching that probably tonight. And there's Barry Season 3. it left at a time in the series where, talk about cliffhanger. He was basically exposed as a hitman, as far as I know. Oh God, did I just ruin it for everybody? Delete that. Um, uh, anyway, it starts out really early, telling you that he is anyway. Made for Love season 2. Never even heard of it. Man, am I out of the loop? Undone season 2. Haven't watched that. Yep, and that's the 9. So if you want to learn more about these particular shows, um, Rotten Tomatoes has little segments there for you. So let me go back to this. I'll have to figure out what's breaking this from Rotten Tomatoes. It shouldn't be happening, but it is. This next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, and it's titled "The State of the Creator Economy." In the State of the Creator Economy, we detailed the latest trends in the creator economy, including monetization strategies, popular social platforms, and recent growth. Simply enter your information to get a copy of an exclusive PDF, right? So this is basically a Business Insider article, kind of hyping up a white paper, as it were. And if you are interested in this kind of thing, then go on over to insiderintelligence.com. I don't have it showing because I have certain things that are getting blocked. But you'll be able to go and check it out. Let's see. I'll throw the link in there and you can tell me more about it. It's part of me looking into the creator space and trying to track how things are being impacted by what I have watched as a potential recession coming to at least the United States. And this is because I've been looking at data about the U.S. Consumer Price Index, CPI, and watching it accelerate. So as it accelerates, we're going to approach inflation and recession to a point where it's similar to the 70s, early 80s era. It's something that I've been talking about with other people, not really into the stream, but it will impact eventually, because we are very intimately tied together in our economies, the global economy, similar to how 2008 impacted people, how 2001 impacted people. So if you are a creator, then you're going to want to know what might be coming. So let's get on to the next article. And this is, if you didn't know about it, Elon Musk moved into Twitter in a pretty big way and is now poised to be appointed onto the board of Twitter. He owns 9.2 or 9.4% of Twitter, largest single owner of the stock, but not enough to control Twitter outright, at least not that we know of yet. There could be, it says here 9.2, but I thought I read that it was 9.4. At any rate, the article's title is Elon Musk's Twitter move drove the biggest two-day push by retail traders into the social media platform on record, research firm says. This is entirely FOMO, fear of missing out. So people moved in on it the moment that it was disclosed and tried to get some marginal profit by buying the stock immediately when it was disclosed to the public. Others probably knew beforehand and were buying the stock. And it jumped 25% immediately after it was announced. So this article is over at Business Insider. Carla Mosey, I think it is, or Mosey, and has a cover art picture of the Tesla CEO Elon Musk. If you don't know much about Elon Musk, intelligent guy, A lot of people think that he is a self-made millionaire. He's a billionaire. I think somewhere in there. I don't know what his net worth is anymore. I stopped paying attention to it. But he comes from some serious money already. And yeah, he bought 9.2% of the shares of Twitter and has been appointed to the board. Yeah. And that caused a spike in the valuation of Twitter. So it says this week's revelation that billionaire investor Elon Musk has become the largest shareholder of Twitter kicked off the largest buying spree of the company's stock by retail investors, according to tracking firm Vanda Research. So on Monday and Tuesday, with a combined tally of $348 million, that was the largest inflow of purchases ever from the retail crowd into Twitter stock. So I'm not sure what it was beforehand. I wasn't paying any attention to it. It might say it in here. See, it was worth Twitter's largest shareholder. Okay, so his take of 73.5 million shares made him Twitter's largest shareholder, and his holding was worth 2.89 billion based on Friday's closing price of 39.31 a share. Now it's at 51. So it will be. What's really interesting about it is that he's very vocal against Twitter in that he thinks that censoring people is violating First Amendment rights, except that the First Amendment is a negative pressure on government trying to silence speaking out against the government. But the First Amendment doesn't apply to. It does to a certain point. I'll put it to you that way. But the First Amendment doesn't really apply to you walking into my house and spouting all kinds of BS. If I don't want you talking about this, whatever it might be, right? Let's say that I think that what you're talking about is garbage and you're spouting it in my backyard. I can ask you to leave, and if you don't leave, I can call the cops and boot you out. Well, the same thing applies to a business. If they don't like what you are doing on their platform, they have every right to boot you out. If you go into a store and you're spouting stuff, they can boot you out. They have the right to refuse service. It's a private business. It allows the public in, yes, but there's only a certain thing. There's only a few things that will stop a business, or that allows a business to kind of be impacted by government controls. Like, you can't prevent people based on their race from going into your business. But they can certainly ask you to leave if you are disturbing the peace, and then have the police remove you should you not leave, because you're disrupting their commerce. And it gets a lot more complex than that. But in this particular case, you're online, and if you're spouting vitriol and hate speech and whatever else, then they can ask you to leave, or they can just shadow ban you. I don't see a lot of people raising issues on Reddit or elsewhere that they've been shadow banned or blocked outright. Sure, some people are, but you have to abide by the rules. And if you violate those rules, then punt, off you go. Because I guarantee you, the people that are angry about that kind of stuff and claiming that they're being silenced, if you were to go over to their platform, the one that they spin up, and they spout that it's all about free speech, and you say things that are antithetical to their ideology, they'll mute you, they'll silence you, they'll kick you off the platform. So it's all about which side of the fence you're on, which makes you either a freedom fighter or a terrorist. And that's the nature of sociology. Now, I think that opinion is opinion and facts are facts. And if you say that something is a fact and it's demonstrably proven not to be a fact, you should be a big enough person to acknowledge it's not a fact. I'm really sorry about it. Here's the evidence that says that it's not a fact, but that's not what happens. The densest people lean into their inaccuracies, and they get louder instead of saying, "Oh, I'm wrong." Well, when you're on a platform with millions of people and you can get a whole lot of a following and you can still say this stuff, you end up with an army coming after you when you call out the BS. So we'll see what happens when an outspoken activist investor takes control of the very platform that they've been calling out. But let's continue on with the news. The next article is in the Word in Tech. Does it matter if we know where our food comes from? Increasingly sophisticated tech tells us more than ever about our food's journey from farm to fork. What do you think? Do you think we should know or care where our food comes from? This is a BBC News article written by Elna Schutz, a business reporter from South Africa. Let's see. Strong ties to the coffee business. Faustin Mulumba. Parents are coffee growers. They're a coffee grower. They've known how to handle coffee since their birth. They're in the DR Congo. Very laborious work if you don't know about coffee, and it's not very expensive when purchasing from the suppliers, but then it kind of ramps up quite a bit when it leaves these large farms, because it takes a lot of space to grow, and then it takes a lot of space to process before it ends up in retail channels. So let's see. For Mr. Mulumba, the new tech means he can see how much coffee has been produced in his cooperative, where the coffee is, and if it's been handled correctly. Yeah, some of the coffee that I've seen being produced in various sectors, it's like spread out in the open, and over history, it seems like it's okay because there isn't much in terms of people getting sick or anything like that. But when you actually look at where it's sourced from and how it's being processed, like people are walking over it and stuff like that, you kind of go, huh, really? That's how coffee comes to me? So a lot of people think of, once they know, think of it kind of like a hot dog. You don't want to know how the hot dog is made. You just want to enjoy the hot dog. Same thing goes for a lot of other things. But the more you know, the more educated decisions you can make. So I think it's great being able to track everything and knowing where it's coming from and from end to end, what's happening with it. It says here, Sarah Eckhouse, Executive Director of Food Shop Global, a food system investment platform, says not being able to trace food fuels consumer distrust and can even perpetuate bad labor practices or lack of sustainability. Yeah, I don't know about consumer distrust. I think that there's very few people that care where their food comes from as long as their food is good and has been assessed by somebody as being not toxic, not poison, not contaminated, not whatever. There is a restaurant here in the States where people were getting sick from the food, and they never really discovered what the source of this illness was. It just, time has gone on and the company is still in business and even acknowledges it. Well, it came from some supplier, but they don't know where it came from, or how it got into the food. But the company is still around. I haven't gone back to it in 5 years, 6 years. maybe longer than that. So as long as somebody validates that it's a legitimate and healthy food source, I don't think people really care. But we'll see. Food's getting more expensive. So let's continue on to the next article. This too is in Hatch Ideas. This only applies really to the US because I don't know about other countries. I suspect it's kind of the same. There are people that are informed of certain machinations in business. It's just the nature of the game in politics and in leadership of a country. They get informed before the regular Joes do, and they can sometimes act on that information. If, like in all things, ethics is the smallest chapter in the employee handbook. So here, there's an attempt to ban federal lawmakers and their family members from trading stocks. It says 37 former lawmakers tell Congress. Dozens of members of Congress have violated a federal conflict of interest law. The former lawmakers say a congressional stock ban will help restore public trust. A congressional committee will conduct a hearing Thursday on lawmakers' stock trades. So there's a stock act that prevents basically all of Congress from trading on the information that they receive as a conflict of interest. So this is a Business Insider article written by Dave Leventhal. And this has been in place for a decade, I think it is. But then it was immediately neutered, and then the act was immediately neutered again to the point where basically there was one report that I read of somebody violating the Stock Act somewhere around 250 times. And to me, if I do something, if I trade stocks based even closely to the sector that I operate in, it's an ethics violation and I can lose my job. I can't benefit from my position. So when somebody isn't subject to this, there is no public trust. It's very exploitive for somebody in a position of authority who receives privileged information before the general public to act on it. It's unethical. It really should be something that is illegal. But what you don't have, similar to other things, you're never going to get somebody who's in charge of giving themselves a raise to say, you know what, I need to take a pay cut. A small business owner with a particular moral compass might. I've seen that before. Small business owners saying, well, I'm doing pretty good and I'll recover, but I'll give more money to my employees. And that's because if you don't treat your employees well and you're a small business, they'll walk and you're out operational status of your business. Congress critters in the US, they can trade on the information, and it's largely, the law enforcement is largely impotent in trying to stop it. So you can become really rich with the information inside your particular bubble. So go over to Business Insider and you can read more about this because that's the context of this. A lot of people have actually said to me, like, who are you to say who can trade stocks with their money? And it's not about their money. It's about their privileged position, getting money or getting information before the public does. So this next article, there it is again. The Rotten Tomatoes is just kind of breaking my aggregator. I have to fix this still. So I'm really sorry. I'll have to open this up. Watch family film Better Nate Than Ever. Celebrate Earth Day with Polar Bear and Ice Age Scrat Tales. See Oscar Isaac in a new episode of Moon Knight. So this is all new on Disney Plus in April 2022. Now this is in the continuity report, which is all about movies and TV shows. So let me click this and throw this in. Dun-dun-dun. Do that. Okay. So what else is going to be in this article? This is over at Rotten Tomatoes, written by Gene Bentley. And yeah, it's just talking about better Nate than ever, which I haven't seen yet. It says here, 13-year-old Nate has big Broadway dreams, but when he isn't cast in the school play, he and his best friend Libby sneak off to the Big Apple. That first aired on the 1st. Let's see, Scrat Tales Season 1, The Biggest Little Farm, The Return. I haven't seen that yet. Polar Bear official trailer. You can go over and check all of this out. Some of this is getting 100%. That's interesting. A tomato meter. Herbie Fully Loaded from 2005 has a 41%. Okay. It's been a while. So let me scroll back up. You can go and check it out over at Rotten Tomatoes. Let me scroll back to where I was. Dun, dun. Okay, this next article is Intel has suspended operations in Russia and calls for a swift return to peace. And so the sanctions are continuing against Russia and businesses are still pulling out. It seems like the conversation is slowing in terms of businesses exiting. There's a lot of talk about businesses that are not leaving. And obviously there's always going to be a cohort of people that do that. I just heard that I think it's Hungary that is going to be paying for oil in rubles, just like Russia demanded, instead of taking steps to stay away from the sanctioning list. So Hungary is probably going to end up being sanctioned as well. And let's see here. It says Intel has suspended operations in Russia, and the company has confirmed following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Many companies around the globe have suspended or pulled out of Russia and its ally Belarus. Chipmaker Intel is the latest to make a stand. I find that very interesting. A market is a market for many businesses, and there's a lot of discussion that I've had regarding, well, the population of Russia is the one that's being punished for what leadership is doing, and specifically Putin. But then you hear a lot of stories about the population supporting Putin. But there's always going to be a loud, vocal few. And so it's hard to imagine that the vast majority of Russians really want this conflict and support it in such a way. But you'll see publicly a lot of people saying yes. That's all marketing to me. This article is over at PCGamer.com. It's written by Jacob Ridley, and it goes into greater detail about this. Intel had previously suspended shipments to customers in Russia and Belarus, but has further since stepped back from the country. Intel says in a press release obtained by Reuters that it has implemented business continuity measures to minimize disruption to its operations worldwide. Yeah, so I don't think that they were doing much manufacturing, if anything, in Russia. And they're gonna keep their fab out of, or their fabs plural, out of countries where it can be nationalized with ease or has the ability to be absconded and given to oligarchs. It says Russia is likely to feel the loss of such a major chip supplier greatly, along with its ability to maintain steady supply of the latest technology. There are some Russia-based chip designers, though these often rely on foreign manufacturing capabilities, such as from Taiwan-based TSMC, which has expressed it will abide by Taiwan's wider sanctions on exports to Russia. At least for now. We'll see what happens. I have a feeling that this is going to extend a little bit longer than many people believe. And we've already gone past 2 deadlines that have supposedly been stated in terms of the Russian offensive into Ukraine. So let's continue on this road of news. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel. I thought that this was really interesting because I've been talking about CEO pay lately, both in the stream and offline, and always astonished when I hear stuff like this. This is actually, in the grand scheme of things, this is actually a smaller compensation package. Roblox. What amounts to, when you hear Roblox, you think kids game, but this thing is a dynamo in generating revenue. So here it says Roblox CEO to pocket $234 million over the next 5 years. 5 years? Come on, that's small time pay, right? Considering the others that I have mentioned over the last couple of episodes. $408 million a year, $300 million a year. This is 234 over the next 5 years, which is really interesting because it's 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, maybe I'm reading into it. It's all aboard the gravy train at Roblox Corporation after the company released an SEC filing detailing its executive compensation plans for the coming years. Thanks, Reuters, according to this article. Roblox's success is hard to overstate. If it were a country, its daily users would make it more populous than Canada. And another recent filing revealed the company is sitting on just over $550 million in the bank. Let's see here. The CEO is David Baszucki. Over the next 5 years, via share-linked payouts rather than salary, will total an estimated $234 million. So as long as it stays profitable. Baszucki's compensation in 2020 was $6.8 million, though at the time he was also being paid a base salary of $500,000. Yeah. So as long as it performs, he'll get a very large payout over the next 5 years. Let's click the link. Take us over to the source. PC Gamer. Thank you, PC Gamer. Rich Stanton is the author of this. But it says here, Mr. Baszucki was particularly receptive. Yeah, I can imagine. So I've looked at Roblox, and whenever I look at it, I hear somebody saying "Okay, boomer" to me, even though I'm not a boomer. That's a lot of That's a lot of Robux from Roblox. Anyway, it's a lot of money. So have we all been leading our lives the wrong way? We should have been a CEO. Do you think that you could run a company that's worth 500 and something million in the bank? There's a lot of rubbing elbows with money. So this next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. A billionaire investor, Leon Cooperman, says the U.S. could enter a recession in 2023 thanks to surging oil prices or aggressive Fed tightening. Leon Cooperman thinks soaring oil prices or aggressive Fed policy could push the U.S. into recession in 2023. The billionaire investor doesn't see a downturn in 2022 and said he's still invested in the market. Of course he is. There's money to be had. Money begets money. When you are a billionaire, you're not making it in little mamby-pamby businesses. You're just investing it. But that is part of the problem. If you demand a return on your investment of 3 times what you invested, that money has to come from somewhere. It's so much more complex, and everybody responds to me. Not everybody. Some people respond to me, well, that money's not just sitting around. No, it's not just sitting around. but it demands a return on investment. So the profit has to be there. If it isn't there, then they'll pull back. But they don't make stupid decisions. They don't just throw money around and not care about the risk. They want a return on their investment. So every time there's a return on an investment, that's a vacuum being filled by revenue. So if it's 3%, 5%, 20%, or a multiplier of 3 times, if they invest $1 million, they want 3 million out. That has to come from profits, which means that the cost to provide a service or a good has to account for that return on the investment. But the only thing that's taking place is money being given to somebody. An amount of money that, if lost, wouldn't impact a billionaire. I had a conversation with somebody that said it would take me 7,500 years to make $1 billion. 7,500 years. Yet, this is the driving force for inflation. There's a ton of money chasing too few goods, except that when you're looking at oil, you're hearing record profits during a pandemic. Supposedly, right? People aren't going anywhere anymore. That doesn't seem to be true. So how are oil companies selling enough oil for shipping, for transportation, for cars, converting it into gasoline? My point is, you have increasing costs for gas, you have increasing costs for oil, and unless both of those are being double dipped by the oil producing companies, you can't have increasing costs for oil and then charge for more at the gas station and then have record profits. So you see what I'm saying? If gas was $100, if oil was $100 a barrel and it went to 120, it increased 20%. But gas is increased in price dramatically more. The consumer price index has increased dramatically more. I end up going into the weeds about this, and it's hard to explain it. But the reality is, if it costs more to acquire the raw materials to produce gas, and you raise the rate for gas, you can't have record profits. It would even out. Unless somewhere in there is a whole lot of manipulation in some way. Where are they getting record profits from if people aren't traveling? Shipping has been hobbled, manufacturing has been hobbled, production has been hobbled, right? Yet record profits since the pandemic. There's some machinations going on that maybe my little brain just don't understand. Very possible. Oh, let me back up here. Sorry. Okay. So this is a billionaire investor, Leon Cooperman, says the U.S. could enter a recession in 2023 thanks to surging oil prices or aggressive Fed tightening. The article is written by Hamza Fareed Malik, and it's over at businessinsider.com. And it says here, I think the Fed has totally missed it, and I think we have a lot of wood to chop, Cooperman told CNBC. I don't know what that... what does that analogy even mean? I would think the price of oil or the Fed would push us into a recession in 2023. It's not written in stone, but that would be my guess. Nice hedge. I'm looking at the data and I'm watching it track toward, this is me talking, not the article. I'm looking at data and I'm watching it track on target for 1970s era, early 1980s era inflation. And ultimately we'll end up in a recession, but I don't know when it'll happen. Um, let's see. The U.S. Central Bank in March raised interest rates for the first time since 2018 to try and tackle. Let me pause this so that it doesn't play a video. That's weird. It looks like it wants to play the video, but it's not. It has flagged another 6 hikes this year and 3 in 2023. But Fed Governor Lael Brainard's hawkish comments Tuesday suggested a possible faster pace of tightening. Yeah, we'll see. You just have to keep on watching this, folks. Recession is typically preceded by bear markets, he added, so I think it's time for caution. Yeah, right after a pandemic. Record profits during a pandemic. Mortgage rates are starting to skyrocket. Yeah. And every time I look further and further back, all the way down to the basic raw material production, I get told that they raised prices because they had to cover costs, primarily gas. And so you keep looking at gas. Why did gas increase? Particularly in the United States. I understand Europe is more impacted by what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. But the US only gets impacted 3%. Cutting off Russia altogether is 3%. But gas prices have increased 60. Yeah, it's a little outstripped. I think it's profiteering. This next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Big short investor Michael Burry trumpets Elon Musk's Twitter stake, and he hints he supports the Tesla chief's push for free speech. There's no free speech in private industry. This, Twitter isn't a democracy. It's a private corporation, and it, short of its users committing a crime and it not acting, even then it has safe harbor. All it has to do is be notified of a crime and it can turn people in, but you don't get to just say whatever you want, although Twitter really enables some vitriolic speech. Let's see. Michael Burry seemed to welcome Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter stock in a tweet this week. The big short investor has bet against Tesla stock and butted heads with Musk in the past. Burry may be hoping Musk will reinstate President Trump and loosen Twitter's content policies. Yeah, people with power and influence should not be able to tell lies, though. False stories, manipulations. People believe that stuff because they don't think critically about the information that's being provided. Let's continue over to the source of this information. This is Business Insider, a segment called Markets Insider. It's written by, I think, Theron Mohammed. It might be Taran. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know how to pronounce it, throw it phonetically into chat and I'll pronounce it properly. Let's see here. Of course, Elon Musk buying enough shares to control Twitter would be good for America, Burry said, and now deleted tweet. Period. No, I don't think so. I think the less overtly biased but truly unbiased management would be much better for America. The editorial noted that both newspapers have published stories in recent weeks about President Joe Biden's son and his dealings with energy companies in China and Ukraine. Yeah, apparently you can go after Joe Biden's kids, but who is distanced from the administration, as far as anybody can tell, isn't being given a job by the administration. So convoluted, so messy, and people come out of the woodwork with vitriol and anger when you talk about politics. Unfortunately, some of it is involving tech and business and society, and most of it is society based. So I am compelled to talk about it, even as to me, I have no dog in the hunt, so to speak. So in this next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. U.S. adults will consume almost as much media as last year, but TV viewing will decline. And this is all because everything is switching over to the web. And I mentioned in a previous episode that essentially the internet is the new TV. You stream more than using cable, and many people have, cut the cable, but they're still wired into Hulu and Netflix and YouTube TV and various apps on Apple, or on Fire Stick or wherever, Roku, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's just a million suppliers of what we would normally get on broadcast TV. So it says here the pandemic. Oh my gosh. The pandemic drove a dramatic increase in time U.S. consumers spend per day with media. Most of those increases will stick in 2021, but traditional TV will lose all of its 2020 gains. This seems like an old article, but it must have been updated. 2022 will continue this trend. This is my opinion of it. But I'll click this link and I'll see why this thing is phrasing it as an old article. It had to have been updated, but it says that it's a 2021 article from Business Insider. So otherwise, it wouldn't show up in my feed. So they must have republished this in some way. And that's too bad. I'll have to audit this information a little bit better. I clicked the link, or I added it to the news because of this. TV continues to decline. Cable TV continues to essentially wipe itself out because it doesn't offer the same flow of information as we can get via the internet. Watching shows on demand when I want to, how fast I want to, skipping ads if I want to. TV is just so old school tech that the modern society doesn't need TV. It needs to take it. Well, the suppliers of our media need to embrace the internet and technology. This is an oddball one. I'm trying to develop a workflow for the more music and entertainment stuff. But I thought this was interesting because I don't know if it's Ed Sheeran only or what, but I've been hearing a lot of these like plagiarism cases, or copyright violation cases from major musicians. Well, this is in the Marble channel. Ed Sheeran wins Shape of You plagiarism case, and this is all the way back from 2017, and it finally went to trial. And it says the singer neither deliberately nor subconsciously stole from another songwriter when writing his 2017 hit, according to a British judge. This is in the New York Times, written by Alex Marshall. And Ed Sheeran had made a statement. I don't have it, but I had seen the statement before finding this in my news feed. And it says there was no more than speculative evidence that Mr. Sheeran had ever heard "Oh Why," just as Zaccaroli added, dismissing Mr. Chakri's claim of copyright infringement. I had read somewhere that the song that Ed Sheeran supposedly took a segment of, sampled, so to speak, because I don't know if it was a true sample or it was just a single little bit. I think it's just the hook, right? So Mr. Sheeran repeatedly sings the hook, "Oh I," in a rising pentatonic melody, which Mr. Chakri claims was based on a section of his song "Oh Why," which was released in 2015 but had comparatively little success. It's just so weird to make a claim like this on something as tiny as two little segments. Just copyright and the DMCA is just it's a battering ram, and us, society, needs to leverage society en masse. A movement needs to go into this, it needs to address this, that copyright. I understand copyright. I embrace copyright, but sampling music, we can create so much more by embracing, utilizing sound bites of music, but people are protecting their particular song, even though it's just a segment, a sample that's being pulled out of it. But it's working because there's a lot of money and a whole lot of legal being thrown at it the moment that you take a little segment. Like for this stream, if I were to play songs in the background, it would flag on YouTube, maybe on Twitch, and I would get DMC takedowns in a heartbeat, and then I'm done. And it's just too heavy-handed for incidental music, let alone taking a little segment of a song and mixing it into another song, as if all of these artists only create in a vacuum and never listen to anybody else's music, including the ones that brought this claim against Sheeran. They've all developed a style of music based on influences by previous artists. So where does their music start and another music producer end? It should be the embodiment, the whole embodiment of the work. That's what you can protect. But that's not how it is. I'm a little vocal about it. So let's go on to the next article. It's not my music being stolen, right? Stolen, sampled, whatever. I'm not losing any money. So apparently I should be marginalized in that opinion because I'm not a musician. I've actually been told that. So this article is in Smack Talk. Yeah, essentially, like, you can't have an opinion about drunk driving being bad unless you get hit by a drunk driver, or being a drunk driver. You have to live through it to have an opinion on it. iPhone, AirPods, Apple Watch all dominate the teen technology market. I thought this was an interesting article. It's the first one in a long time that I've seen involving this particular segment. The latest Piper Sandler teen survey shows an all-time record for teen use of AirPods, plus the strong demand for the Apple iPhone 13, as Apple remains the most popular device maker for teenagers. This is an analyst firm. Piper Sandler undertakes 2 surveys of U.S. teenagers per year, with the last one covering fall of 2021. And its newly released spring 2022 report shows Apple either broadly retaining its popularity with some devices or increasing it with others. So let's click this link. It'll take us over to Apple Insider. That is a red phone. Wow. Anyway, this article is written by William Gallagher. And let's see. More marked change came with the proportion of teens already owning the latest model. In the new spring 2022 survey, approximately 18% owned an iPhone 13, well ahead of the approximately 12% who owned the iPhone 12 in the previous report. I don't know if that's well ahead. 1%? No, 6%. Approximately 18 owned the iPhone 13, so I would agree, well ahead. So it's growing. And depending on the model of it, I'm not sure if it included all models, but the flagship iPhone 13 is $1,300, all said. Pretty pricey phones for teenagers to own. There you go. Similarly, a record percentage of teens surveyed now own an Apple Watch, which again, pretty pricey gadget for a teen to own. Teens have a lot of disposable income, apparently. I know I didn't when I was a teen. That's 34% up from the previous survey's 30%. So it went up 4%. The percentage of teens intending to buy in the next 6 months was up to 14% from the previous 13%. So that's kind of marginal. Anyway, if you want to learn more about this and what teens are purchasing on the Apple market, apparently you can go over to Apple Insider and check it out. I only have one more article, and that's in the Warcrafters channel. Ubisoft or Ubisoft, it depends on who I've been talking to lately, ends its NFT experiment in Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but promises they're coming to other games. Yesterday, Ubisoft announced that Ghost Recon Breakpoint would receive no further content updates, the final act for a game that had been an extremely messy launch and never really found its audience. Yeah, that's not a bummer. Cut your losses and focus on what works. Let's see. The breakpoint digits did not create all that much interest. I kept checking trading sites for a month or two after their launch, and there was barely any activity around them. Now Ubisoft has confirmed that the end of breakpoint updates also means that the game won't see any more digits. A message on the Ubisoft Quartz website thanks players who bought them and reads, "You own a piece of the game and have left your mark in history." Yeah. You own a piece of the game. I guess we'll see if anybody will ever buy it from you. Okay, so this article is over at pcgamer.com, written by Rich Stanton. That's pretty much all there is in this article. You can go and learn more about this article if you go over to pcgamer.com. Do you think games should have NFTs in them? You know, you basically produce NFTs and then you sell them. Owning an NFT by itself is a worthless endeavor. It's worth something to somebody, so you have to sell it to return on that investment. NFTs cost money to publish for sale. So what is the purpose of an NFT? Because you can gain access, you can obtain a picture, a digital whatever, without it being an NFT. You just own it, quote unquote, own it when it's an NFT and you've purchased it. Right? So it says right here, the idea that someone who bought a pair of gloves with a serial number, quote unquote, owns a piece of Breakpoint is as absurd as the idea that anyone will care about the history of in-game items. Well, that's kind of what they said about trading cards. You know, oh my gosh, they're not worth anything except the purchase price. Well, I think one of them recently sold for like $5 million, a single card. There's another card that's right now for sale for 25,000 or something like that. Or no, I'm adding a bunch of zeros. I think it's a $25 card, a single $25 card for one game. But anyway, yeah, I agree with this statement. That it's just absurd. If a game is dead, nobody's going to care about the NFT, particularly if the game died because it was unpopular. You know, I can understand if a game dies and it's extremely popular and people really like the item, whatever it might be, because it's iconic and it's an NFT and not many people had them. Somebody might, you know, for nostalgia purposes, want that as an ownership thing, you know, whatever it might be. But an NFT for NFT's sake is just absurd to me. There's always a market though for somebody. Somebody is willing to pay for anything. You just got to find that person. Okay, well, that is the end of the show. I don't have any more news for today, although ohmTown.com definitely does. So when you are done surfing around Twitch, you can go over to ohmTown.com. Let's go back to the beginning of ohmTown. Again, I've been making some changes. I added the gamification stuff again. I turned it back on. It might break something, but it hasn't yet. Watch it break right now live. But I'm done with the show, and I appreciate you hanging out. If you're still in chat, thank you very much for hanging out. Be sure to follow me. There is a follower goal right there, and I'm just over the 50% hump. I would really like that to reach its goal. I've been doing this for just shy of 100 days. I know that there are people out there that have been doing this for a lot longer. But I would like to keep on moving ahead. So please follow me. I really want that follower goal to increase. And, the sooner that I can, I don't go into other people's channels and talk about me. I don't advertise anywhere. I post that I'm going to do a show on, Twitter, and I've got the podcast over on Spotify now, on Google Play, on iTunes podcast, Apple Podcasts. Not to mention ohmTown.com exists. It doesn't get posted there, though. The podcast doesn't get posted there. I guess I could, but for the most part, I don't publish directly on the site. Not sure why. I should just post it and create another segment. Maybe down here at the bottom, I'll just put the podcast, a link to the podcast. I'm working on policy. But I would thank you time and time again for just mashing that follow button. And remember, I haven't said it in probably 2 or 3 weeks now. If you are interested in co-hosting or hosting one of these 50 shows, or spinning up another one and hosting or co-hosting it with me, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm open to discussion, and we can work out the specifics. But I would love to have somebody else on this show, bantering more about the news, because I don't know. I'm plowing through an hour, 20 articles, and there's not that much discussion in between articles, other than me adding what I think is additional context and flavor to the news. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. I'm going to end my recording and not necessarily end the stream if y'all want to talk